Good morning. I'm so glad you joined us today for Thoughtful Thursdays. As you know, we bring guests on every Thursday and hope to bring value to your life, things that you can use to make your life more designable. And as you know, I'm Carol Henderson. I have Life by Design, and you can design your life for anything you want. You just have to have the tools to do it and be willing to do what you need to do to get those tools working. So I'm here and I have my co-host Barbara Ellison with us. I'll let her introduce herself and our guest.
Yeah. I'm Barbara Ellison, and I am founder of the Wellness Playroom, because wellness is about so much more than just not being sick. It's about having wellness in your relationships and having wellness in your physical body, but also having wellness in your wealth. And so that's why I am so excited to introduce you to a new friend that I met this week, Cyntra Subkaran, and she is a financial gal. And you are going to love what she has to share with us. And so, Cyntra, welcome to Thoughtful Thursdays. How are you doing this morning?
I am doing wonderful, and it's a pleasure to be on with you, ladies.
Yeah. So tell us about you. How did you get into finances?
Oh, that's a great question. So ever since I was a little girl, I think I've loved learning about money and what it does, just getting my friends together and, just taking whatever money we had and just find ways to use it in a good way, as little as I can remember, right? And just getting a financial education as well.
Okay. So now how has that transferred into what you're doing now?
So what I'm doing now is helping others, right? Like teaching them the financial education, learning all about money, what it can do for us, the steps that we can take to become financially independent as well. And the tools that you can use to make sure that you can get out of debt, you can save more money for the long term. And also, make sure that there's room for fun too, right? Finance can be fun as well, but if you plan it, that's the key. Making sure that you plan your finance, right? Because, we plan everything. We plan a party, we plan a wedding, but what about our finances? It's something that we should be planning as well.
Do you find more women than men do not do that?
I definitely agree. I think as women, we kind of tend to lean on our husbands, right? That they have the financial knowledge. They're going to take care of us. They're going to take care of everything. But sometimes it's not the case, because as we find, women are living longer than men do, right? So we have to make sure that we can plan for those times when, let's say, if our husband's not there. So we should be as involved in the budgeting, whether it's a monthly budget that you have. It's something my husband and I do every month, or actually on a weekly basis. We sit down and we discuss our finances together, because you're both bringing in an income. Even if you're not, if you're a stay-at-home mom, it's important what you do as well. So together, I think you have to work at, have the goals and say, okay, this is what we're going to accomplish, but at the same time, be on the same page. Because if someone passes away, what happens then? It's like you kind of have to regroup and figure things out. So you should always be on the same page when it comes to your finances.
That is great, because I'm of the age that some of my friends are starting to die off. Let's look at it bluntly, but I have had in the last year or 2 years, probably 4 or 5 friends who have lost their husbands. In fact, tomorrow I'm having lunch with my best friend from high school. I'm having coffee with one girl, lunch with another, and both of them were widowed. And the coffee one, unexpectedly, literally his shock vest that they sometimes make people wear, it shocks their heart, and it shorted out and did not work. And so, he was just gone in a blink of an eye. Nobody expected it. And so, there was no time you know, she was not left in horrendous situation, but there was no time left for him to tell her things. And she was left rather shocked with some of the situations that were in place when he went. And so that's hard. It's very hard. And so coming from that generation, and also in our generation, it was more, I mean, Barbara, I'm sure experienced this, of the time when women did stay home more. My mom was a teacher, she worked, so I wasn't from that kind of a family, but as a rule, most people's mothers were home.
Oh yeah, my mom was always, she made our lunches every day, and she was always there when we came home from school.
Right. But you know, most moms were home during those days, and most moms you know, were there and depended on their husband's income. And right. So that, you know, it wasn't as rare as in the 30s and 40s, but I was raised in the 50s, 60s area. And so that, you know, that was very common, and women did depend on their husband. They, you know, there was the whole leave it to Beaver era. And so, you know, a lot of them were rudely awakened later on.
Well, one of the things that happened to me when my husband passed away was never even thought anything of it. I went to buy a top at Kohl's to wear to his memorial. And I handed him my Kohl's credit card, and this poor little 18-year-old girl came back and said, "Your card's been declined." And I went, "What do you mean my card has been declined?" And so she said, "Well, did your husband die?" She had to ask me that. I went, "Well, yeah. Oh, what's that got to do with?" Well, when they had gotten notification that because David had died and his name was the only name on the credit card, all of my credit cards were canceled.
Wow. Wow. I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't know that one? Yeah.
I didn't know that part of the story.
I called one, and then I called one of the credit cards, and I said, "Why can't I use my credit card?" He said, "Well, it's in your husband's name and it's been rescinded." I said, "Well, I'm an authorized user on the card. Why can't I use it?" He said, "Well, your husband, when he died, rescinded his authorization." I said, "Did he call you from heaven?" But I was like, seriously? And yeah. But luckily, the only thing that saved me was luckily I had a card tucked away that I had not used in like a year and a half. So I never had a balance on it or anything. And I was up to date. I had no balances, but no credit cards. And so I got that. I happened to have that credit card, and I could use it because they were not notified because there was no record of me having it.
Wow, that's fascinating. That's why I think, you know, what I usually say to, you know, my clients too, like, it's great to have, you know, be an authorized user, but have your own as well. Like maybe have your joint together, but have separate in the event something happens, because when that spouse is no longer here, there's paperwork and there's stuff you have to kind of go through, and there's legal stuff involved as well. So it's important that you have your own separately as well as together. There's, you know, just in terms of planning is important. That's the key.
Yeah. And one of the other things that we ran into was last year when I sold my house. Because we had a joint trust, I never even thought of the trust. So when it came time to sell the house, I technically didn't own the house, the trust did. And that was another little headache. It was like, okay, now what do we do? Because he's been dead for 9 years. There's no way we can get his signature on anything. And it was just, oh brother. So yeah, there's so many ramifications of financial planning.
Yes, and just taking the time, like, to just know it together, do it together. You know,
review
everything. Yes, review it. Make sure you get if it's a lawyer, whoever it is, you know, get that, you know, person, the professional advice in a sense, to make sure that you're on the same page and you know what to do in the event something happens. You know what your rights are, what you're not entitled to, or whatever it is that you have to do, the steps necessary that you need to take.
Yeah, and I look back now, it's like, gee, when he first passed away, I should have done something with the trust. Never even thought about it.
Well, that goes into that widow's fog you talk about.
Oh, I was in, total widow's
exactly.
fog. So if somebody is just getting started and, you know, and right at this moment does not have any kind of a financial plan, where would you suggest that they start?
Okay, great question. So I would definitely start with a plan, and our plans are complementary. So I would look at, because everyone's situation is different, right? I can't tell, you know, what your situation is based on just looking at you. We have to look at the numbers. We have to assess where you are, you know, in terms of, okay, let's see where you are with your savings, where you are with retirement planning, where you are with your emergency fund. So we take all of those numbers, we put it into a software that we use, and then we're able to, you know, give you numbers in a sense, you know, like what is your retirement, you know, we call it a FIN number. Let's say, what's your financial independence number? How much money do you need to keep you retired? How much money do you need to actually save towards that retirement, right? Because that's where you would start. It's like if, let's say, for example, you went to the doctor and the doctor just looked at you and said, okay, I'm just going to prescribe you medication. Are you going to be excited to take it without the doctor questioning you? So you have to, you know, ask those important questions, like, you know, let's see where you're at. You know, have you started yet? At what age did you start to put money away? Because sometimes we're under the impression that retirement planning starts like maybe a few years before you retire. It actually does not. You have to plan well ahead of time. The earlier, the better. But knowing these things way ahead of time, you can, you know, whatever in the future, whatever is there, you can actually plan, and like there's no pitfalls, there's nothing there to like stop you in a sense to say, okay, I didn't plan properly. So early is always a good thing. Start with a plan, see where you're at, look at the numbers, assess it as ever so often, maybe every 6 months to a year, to make sure that you're on track.
So I have a question for you. When do you recommend for people to have multiple streams of income?
It's never too early, I would say. I think as soon as maybe you can work legally, there's nothing wrong with having multiple sources of income, but it depends on like the lifestyle, of course, that you want to live, right? So if you want to live a lifestyle where, okay, but first off, plan your lifestyle to say, okay, this is, maybe I want to travel. Maybe I want to stay home and take care of my kids. Let's say if you're a mom, whatever it is, it's always important to have multiple sources of income. I think that, you know, money is something we can never have enough of, right? Because you can use that money for yourself, but not only for yourself, imagine that you can give to others in need, right? So having multiple sources of income is always something that I think we should all at some point try to pursue that in some way, because you can use it for yourself or help others.
Okay. We were on a call with a friend earlier today who has had some health challenges recently. And, you know, he made the comment he had kind of a little downturn, but he does a job that has leveraged income. And he was able to slide through this month or so of illness without having his income impacted like somebody who goes to work every day and trades time for money. And so that's why I was asking for that, about that, because there's so often a way to bring in extra money to help get to your goal of having people financially independent. That doesn't take a lot of time. A lot of the things that people can do, you can work 1 hour a day and build a 6-figure income over time because of the leverage to do it. So, you know, that's something, I know that Barbara and I both do something like that, a little side gig. So it makes a difference. And so do you recommend that for people?
Absolutely, I recommend. And in my field too, we do have a side of our business that is residual income. I mean, you know, to have one source of income, it's great, but what happens when it stops, or, or it does stop at some point. You know, you're in retirement, you're not getting, your employers are not going to be sending you a check, right? You're going to have to depend on Social Security or whatever. And you're kind of limited. I think when you have more sources of income, you can do so much more. You have options, you can explore, you can do whatever it is that you want to, but when your income is limited, there's not much you can do. So it's important. I think it's always a good thing.
Okay.
So one day I was listening to Bob Proctor, and he was saying that, he said, you know, I have probably 7 or 8 or 9 different sources of income. Some pay me $200 or $300 a month, but some of them pay me hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. And it's like, wow. I think for me, it just gives choices. Like I have a residual income because there's a membership plan to it. And that they want to be able to use the tools, so they pay every month for the use of the tools. Mm-hmm. And it is just so nice because every once in a while I look and go, oh yeah, oh gee, and I have somebody new that's using the tools because they're out there. And it's just absolutely so fun when you can see that it just show it's who is it that calls it just mailbox money?
Yeah.
Just it shows up in your mailbox, and like with me, it shows up on my bank statement. I'm like, oh, where did that come from? Oh yeah, thank you. And
isn't it wonderful? And then imagine like it shows up every day, right? And then you want to make it show up maybe every hour. So that's the goal, right? And not even like you're not even having to put in as much hours in a sense to feel
no, not at all.
This time. Yeah.
Not at all.
That's like with me, one of my investments, every week I get a little email. Oh, congratulations, you've made a commission. It's like, oh, thank you.
Yeah. Exactly. You know, I'm a real fan of that, you know, mainly probably because of my age, but I'm a real fan of that. And God forbid the whole country shuts down again or the whole world shuts down again. My income was not impacted like others were because there was a flow that had been started. And so that's
years ago. And the effort that you put in years ago is still paying you today.
Yes.
That's me. The things that I did 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago are still paying me today.
That's wonderful. It really is nice to know. I mean, this is a different form of working. It doesn't have to be the traditional way. Like we were taught, you know, go to school, get an education, work for 40 years, and then retire. There's so much more out there that you can explore. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to do that, right? Because depending on your money blueprint, as they say, because, you know, it depends on maybe how you were raised, the environment you were raised in, you can, maybe you weren't taught that money is a good thing. You know, there's people who think it's evil or something like that, but no, you can change that as well. And you can, you know, definitely welcome other sources. There's nothing wrong with someone wanting multiple sources or having. I think the more you have, you can give and you can do so much more.
Well, and we are blessed to be a blessing, or that's how it's supposed to work. And so I'm so glad to see that you're getting out there and educating people in this, hopefully young people, not that the old ones, but, you know, sometimes it's hard to teach an old dog a new trick. But also, I think the older generation is better at saving as opposed to immediate gratification. And that's something that, you know, they did. I'm sure you've heard about the test they did with the toddlers. It was done back in the 50s, and they said, you can have this marshmallow now, or you can have 3 marshmallows in an hour or something like that. I don't remember all the details.
I remember that study.
And the difference in the children that did the now and then did the later, and that were able to do, and the ones who were able to do the delayed gratification excel. You know, they followed these kids all through life up into their mid-20s, and just the difference in their education and their stance and their work ethic and the jobs that they had was outstanding.
You're right. You're so right about that, especially in like the current situation, like we're so used to having things like immediately, right? But when you're planning for finance or you're planning to build wealth, it takes time. It's not instantly, you're gonna invest today and then here you have like, I mean, of course, it depends on what type of vehicle you're using. However, I think wealth takes time to build, right? And so to sustain it over time. It's not an instant gratification thing where it's like, okay, we're just gonna invest today and tomorrow we have all the money. So, for our generation, sometimes it's tough because we love things instantly and we expect it like right there. And, I'm guilty of that. We expect it to be right there and then, but, looking at, I would say, like you said, in a sense, the older generation, like I look at my grandmother, she's 84. So I look at her, the way she was an entrepreneur as well. So looking at the way she saved money and she treated money and the way she used it in a sense to build her life, those are things we can learn, right? And we could adapt it. So we want to have the instant gratification, but at the same time, look at what our grandparents were doing maybe, or the older generation did to help them to get to where they are. Be a little patient with ourselves.
Well, stop and think. Your grandmother had to cook dinner, or her mother had to cook dinner, scratch. There weren't a lot of restaurants. People did not go out except for special occasions. And so, to cook a dinner that takes 1 or 2 or 3 hours as opposed to popping a pre-made meal in the microwave. It's a whole different mindset. So let's wrap this up. Is there any last little tidbits you have for us to help us to get started?
I think importantly, create a budget. A budget is just telling your money what to do. So whether you can start where you're at. Look, we're not saying have this huge spreadsheet or anything. Just start by taking a piece of paper and tracking what you're spending on a daily and a monthly basis. And if you're married, do it with your spouse, if you're not, and, just do it, but just do a budget. It's important because you're bringing in money, you work hard for it, make sure you know where it's going. That's all I can say. And then you can have your financial plan, make sure you're on track, that, there's no surprises later. You can plan your finances, and that's an important thing to do.
Okay. How do people get a hold of you?
That was my question too. You took the words right out of my mouth.
Okay, so I am on many different platforms. I'm on Facebook at, you can find me Cyntra Subkaran. I'm on Instagram as well. LinkedIn, my name, you just look my name up and you can definitely connect with me there. And I do have some, free resources that I can share to teach more about, money and how it works. So, yeah.
Right. Well, we'll put those in the links below on how, some of her free resources. And for Barbara and myself, text 855-476-4845. 855-476-4845. And for Barbara, you text SHINE to that number. And for me, you text wellness to that number. And you'll get a link back that'll show you our business cards. And so that'll kind of give you more of what we do outside of Thoughtful Thursdays. But I want to thank y'all for coming today. And we just appreciate every one of you. Please like, comment, and share this out everywhere because we want to help people have a better life. So, Barbara, did you have any last minute comments?
Don't be afraid of finances.
Yeah.
Once
Money should be your friend.
Let finances be your friend. Yeah. And because for the longest time, they weren't for me. But once I realized that, what, it really does. When I got over all the things of when David passed away, all the things I didn't know. You know what? Yeah. So just finances are your friend. So if you haven't started, just get started and take it one step at a time. But get a coach, get somebody to help you with it.
Yes, so, yes. And we will put Cyntra's information in the chat below. So Cyntra, last comment.
Just want to say thank you. This was an absolute amazing session with you ladies. I've learned as much, from you as I'm sure you've learned some things for me. So it was great. And I thank you again, for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Cyntra. We appreciate you coming on. Bye, guys.
We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Yeah.
Oh.
I wanted her to stay.
Oh, no, stop.